Oh dear. Of course. I I had turned it on. I just had never actually, unmuted my mic on OBS. I'm having a day of it. An hour and 10 minutes late, mic's not on. Oh. So I guess I could restart all this. Okay. This will... Yeah, I will definitely have to go back to YouTube and edit this one in... Edit the VOD, remove all the stuff. Okay. But... Well, to reintroduce what this is, Hello? And yeah, last stream I was talking about tokusatsu. A friend came on and joked about me making a tier list of Japanese Power Rangers. And, because I apparently can't take a joke as a joke, I've taken this seriously and I'm preparing to make a tier list of Super Sentai. I'm in no way qualified to make a list such as this, but I'm going to anyway. It is purely subjective. I have no claims that this is in any way going to be a list of value to anyone. And if you disagree with my opinions, feel free to tell me about it, because, you're probably right. My opinions have a tendency to be wrong. The criteria I'm judging them by, I've got 5 criteria that I'm at least trying to kind of consider. So there's at least some semblance of, it not being completely arbitrary. Which are the plot of the show, like the overall story, the characters in the show, how interesting they are, how well they interact with each other, the actual tokusatsu side of things, so what the suits and action look like, the general aesthetic, I guess, almost of the show. The music, which will be a big part for me, because I'm an absolute sucker for insert songs. And then the 5th criteria, which goes, like, completely backtracks on this trying to not be arbitrary, and it's how much fun I had. Like, how much did I enjoy the show, and how much do I feel like I want to go and watch it again. No. Time Ranger, I'd kind of just established it, because I'm going through these in chronological order. Well, not chronological order, but series order. Time Ranger is the oldest Super Sentai I have completely watched. Its plot was good. Like, I'd say definitely better than average, but it wasn't quite stand out enough for me to give it like a 5 out of 5. So, Time Ranger... Yeah, Time Ranger was all about people from the future traveling back in time to catch criminals from the future who had escaped to the year 2000, only to be betrayed and find themselves stranded there. So, characters as well, I remember some subplots for the characters, mainly around the Pink, Blue, and Time Fire. Because I know Pink had her storyline revolving... It only took me an hour and 10 minutes longer than it should have to get it started up. But yes, you should know from now that I can't take a joke as a joke. So, it's actually happening. Oh. I don't know how much I say about stuff, because not wanting to potentially... As a tokusatsu fan, I'm like, on the off chance that any of my content ever inspires anyone to actually watch any of these shows, I don't want to spoil anything. Time Ranger, I think as well in characters, the characters were definitely more grounded, I think, than in later series. So I think I'd definitely put that at about 4 out of 5. So I'd still say, just based on the story and characters, the Time Ranger would be in A tier. I had a thought of something I was going to say, but I've completely forgotten. Yeah. Oh yeah, that was it. Yeah, also because I've been wasting so much time with not having the mic working, not having the tier list working, and being late in general, I've got an hour and a half to figure out where I want to place another... I think there's nearly 20 series here I have to consider. Look, if I consider the suits and, like, the action in Time Ranger, I think, from what I remember, I think I definitely have to put that up into, like, that would be definitely a 5 out of 5. Time Ranger, the suits in Time Ranger are cool. Like, I love the visors, the little downwards arrow things, and the visors being the color of the suit rather than the... Oh, do I have the... Can this work? Can I actually, if I add an image? Give me a moment. Where is it? It'll be in the list I made the other day. Where is it? Where's Time Ranger? Is that Time Ranger? There it is. There it is, Time Ranger. Those suits. It's not a particularly high quality picture, but I suppose that partly comes from it being an older series, and this is just a screen cap from the show rather than any promotional material. The suits in Time Ranger are great, and they did this... Oh, I don't know what technique it was during a lot of the action, but to represent, they were kind of like time... Well, not time, well, time travelers, but also kind of like time-based. Like, they used a... Oh, like a very low frame rate for some parts of the fight scenes. And then add, like, it feels like they added motion blur, like, more than was necessary. Which made the fights very choppy, but in that cool way. And it's something that's very... It sticks out, like it's unique. Oh, and then the mechs, of course, were pretty awesome in Time Ranger. Ooh. The only one I'm not overly fond of is, what's it? Time Robo Beta. But it has its shadow form, so I can forgive that. Ooh. Then, music for Time Ranger. Time Ranger's music, Ooh. I was about to say I don't remember many tracks, but the theme song's awesome. It has like a full English version of the theme song that's, like, official, sung by the same, vocalist. And then, of course, you have the Time Fire theme song. I wish I could play some of the insert songs for Super Sentai and stuff, like, to let you guys hear them without, you know, copyright it being an issue. But music, I think... The only thing I can... Maybe it's just because I haven't listened too much into it. No, wait, no, the more I think about it, the more I remember Time Ranger tracks, and Time Ranger tracks are good. I think that's bumping up to an S. The general fun, though, that's the last one. Apologies for my avatar freaking out a bit. How did I definitely, at the end of it, felt I had enjoyed Time Ranger, but it wasn't one of those ones where I'm kind of like, I'll definitely come back to this. And I haven't gone back to it yet, and even now, I don't feel like... But to be fair, the more I talk about it, I'm kind of like, yeah, maybe I want to go back and watch this again. But that also might be just, you know, that'll likely happen with a lot of these series. So I think about a 4 or 5 for Time Ranger as well. I'm going to cautiously the first S tier or not. Yeah. I'm kind of stuck. I feel it's kind of somewhere in between. I'm gonna say A tier purely because compared to some of that feeling of, oh, I really want to watch this again, I haven't gotten that really for Time Ranger. I might readjust it depending on how the rest of the list goes. But for now, I think I'm happy putting it there. Now, Deca Ranger. It's S tier, and I'm going to just, you know, not talk about that. That's primary bias speaking I know I love Deca Ranger because it's the first series I watched, but let's try and consider it a little bit more objectively. So the plot of Deca Ranger is... I remember I quite like it because it's less... Like, there's less an overarching group of villains in Deca Ranger. Because the whole idea is that they're special police. And it's all about, like, these individual cases and criminals. In the end, it's kind of revealed, like, there is someone who's behind the scenes, you know, supplying all these criminals. And has kind of been behind a lot of, if not... I'm fairly certain he wasn't behind all the incidents they had to deal with, but he was behind a lot of them. And dealing with him. But I quite like that episodic plot where there's not as much focus on an overall narrative. Because it leads into the second point, the characters. Because the characters in Deca Ranger are great. And I think they're one of the few teams I can fully remember names of. Because you've got... actually, I can only remember them because they've all got nicknames. But you've got Ban, Umiko, Jasmine, Soji, Senchan, that's the other one, and Tetsu. And of course then even the supporting characters like the Commander, Doggy Kruger, and Swan. And all of them have great like individual storylines. I particularly remember one of Soji's storylines where he's left with the decision of whether or not to... You know, he's been sent to execute, effectively, his girlfriend's little brother. Because they found out his girlfriend's little brother is a serial killer. Characters and plot, I think that's Deca Ranger solidly in S. Which, again, I am well aware that this is likely bias coming in here. Suits in Deca Ranger, also very high tier in my opinion. Do I have a picture of him? There we go. Oh, that's a very large picture. That's going to completely eclipse the entire screen if I put that up right now. There we go. There we go. Deca Ranger. Those suits. Oh. No, the suits... I'm trying to think of any I didn't like. No, plus this was... Deca Ranger was one of the early... They had the power-ups, swap mode, which made the suits even cooler. All the mechs as well. I can't think of any of the mechs I didn't like. And the action. Most of what I remember of the action is Ban's the Red Ranger, because he fought using Jukundo, the Way of the Gun, because he always dual wielded pistols. And actually, I watched the first episode just the other day again, and it's actually a really cool way of fighting in a show. The thing, it's really good, but I think I do have to say it's not one of the highlights of Deca Ranger is the action. So I think I might have it only 4 out of 5, but I'll still keep it an S tier, just because the action's a little bit not as good as other series. Music for Deca Ranger. Music for Deca Ranger is good. The theme song is the only track that I'm kind of not really that bothered by. Oh, but they've got Midnight Deca Ranger. The ending theme is such a nice jazzy bop. If that's, I don't know if that's the right musical term for it, but that's what it feels like to me. You've got... Oh, what's the name? I can't remember the names of any of the songs. I know there's SWAT on from Psychic Lover. No, music. I'm gonna say another 4 out of 5. Like it's good. I like it, but it's not. It's not the best. Overall fun and rewatchability, that's definitely solidifying it in S tier though, because again, this is unashamedly primary bias. This is just, it's the first Super Sentai I watched. I have a special place for it in my heart. And to be fair, like it's one I definitely recommend, like for anyone starting Super Sentai, because I guess that's something else I should consider for the ranking of it. Like, how quickly would I be to recommend it as someone starting the franchise? But Deca Ranger, definitely up there in S tier. And then is Magi Ranger. What Magi Ranger is... oh, what's it called? Infurtia. The evil underworld is seeking to take over the surface world. And the interesting thing about I suppose this kind of overlaps with the characters, is that the 5 Rangers are all siblings in it, which is lends to quite an interesting team dynamic. Because it's not just that they're strangers fighting together, they're family as well. And you've got little plot lines like the eldest brother kind of all worrying about his responsibility to maybe protect his younger siblings as they fight. Everyone worrying about like the reckless youngest sibling. I feel that definitely gives it a lot more charm, I guess. Definitely makes it quite very nice to watch. Let's say plot. You know, I actually think I might. Would I say the plot is 5 out of 4? You know, yeah, I think on the first 2, I'd put it in S tier. The suits for Magi Ranger, they have capes. I mean, I can't. They have capes. That's all I need to... I don't have a good picture for them. But I have a thing with capes and cloaks and skirts and anything kind of flowy in clothes and aesthetic design that is... Yep. I think... That's the only thing I can complain about, is as cool as the upgrade form looks in Magi Ranger, it does get rid of the capes, which I do not approve of. The mech design as well was really interesting. Like, they didn't look quite as forced as in some Sentai. Like, some Sentai you see very clearly like, different mechs. Like, this one is very clearly an arm. There's a very clear separation of the different... I think particularly like, Magi King is one of like the most well blended mechs in the game, in the series, I think. Music though. Magi Ranger had good music, but I don't think quite enough to maintain its position in S tier. I might have to bring... It's one I don't recall looking up much of the soundtrack for Magi Ranger. I remember the opening, the ending, and a couple of the songs from it, but yeah, as I remember them, the tracks are nice to listen to, but they definitely don't stand up to some of the other series. And overall fun and how much I'd recommend it. Yeah, I do very much enjoy it. I've gone back to it a couple of times. I'm comparing it now to Deca Ranger is my comparison point as being an S tier. I don't think Magi Ranger can quite reach that standard, so I think it's solidly in the A tier. Like, it's definitely there. It's not, oh, it might have been a B. No, it's definitely solidly in the A tier. Considered for the S tier, but just not quite making it, I feel. Ooh. Next up is Bokenger. The plot of Bokenger is... It was actually... I think I have to bring it up to S tier, like, first on just based on the plot. Because the plot of Bokenger was quite interesting, and it had a similar thing to Deca Ranger in that there wasn't one big overarching villain. there were actually 3 different groups, and then a couple of, like, individuals. They were all collectively called Negative by the organization that the Rangers worked for. And it was the Rangers' job was just to... They were adventurers who went out to secure dangerous artifacts and keep them out of the hands of people who might use them to, well, destroy the world or something. And of course, there were several of these organizations trying to get hold of these dangerous artifacts. So, yeah, and that's what... Like Deca Ranger, that's one thing that quite appeals to me, I feel, is the... having multiple villains. Because I feel like a battle being more than just one side versus another and having those interactions, because of course the villain groups were opposed to each other, because they were all still trying to steal relics, but sometimes they'd work together to work against the Rangers, or the Rangers would find themselves walk into a situation and find the bad guys fighting each other. Characters in Bokenger. I was about to say I can't think of too much, but I suppose the Black Ranger, the Yellow Ranger, and Silver Ranger all had really nice plot points. I don't know if enough to say S tier, because that's only like half the main team. So I think I'll put it in A tier there. The suits and mechs, though. Very cool. Enough to... S tier cool? That's the question. Is it S tier cool? I'm thinking... I'm thinking of Die Voyager. Die Voyager was an awesome mech. And... it was one of the ones that I loved how they kind of shifted the color scheme on. Like, they didn't go very much with the Rangers' primary colors. But I mean, it's not their primary mech, so I guess that's understandable anyway, but... And even then... I did like Daiboken. The suits themselves are awesome, because they've got they're a little more armored than some Sentai, like using the shoulder pads, which is always a nice touch. I think it'll have to be S tier, especially when I consider the music and fun sides, because Bokenger has some really cool soundtracks in it. Startup Kizna is definitely one of the tracks I was hypest to listen to in Super Sentai. And of course, fun. It's just a really solid series, and I can definitely, I feel, recommend as someone's introduction to the franchise. Geki Ranger is next, though. Geki Ranger is... That's it's martial arts based one. All about finding and channeling your inner beast. It was another one where the plot, like, the bad guys were very interesting in it, because you had Rio and Melee, who were... They were very... Those villains who kind of were very much developed as well as... Well, not maybe as well as, but nearly to the same extent as the main Rangers themselves. Which is... I think something that really can set aside a good superhero series from a great superhero series is how good the villains are. Rinjuden definitely, I think, make Geki Ranger's plot great. The characters as well are all really good. Again, I mentioned Mel and Rio already, the villains of the series. Who... Oh, what's the right word? They're just developed so much as characters and not just what's easy to do in a children's superhero show and just make them one-dimensional villains. But they had hesitations, they had struggles. They were developed as people rather than just as villains. The Rangers themselves were all... Not thinking as much the 2 extra Rangers, Geki Violet and Geki Chopper. They were... I don't remember too much about them, but the three main Rangers, definitely. Jan especially. The Red Ranger in this one had a really nice story, even though at first I wasn't sold on him because he felt like he was being a bit of a caricature. Like kind of just a memey Tarzan style Jungle Boy. But as the story went on, his story got really interesting, I remember. So I think that's still keeping Giga Ranger in the S tier. And suits. The suits, I feel I have to bring it down a bit. I don't. Is it enough to bring it down from S tier? I don't think it is actually. Because given how well the other things do, the suits in Giga Ranger, I'm not overly fussed on. They do look pretty cool. And then I remember Rio's suit. So that's one I can't forget. The mechs, I can't think of any of the mechs in Giga Ranger I was overly fussed on. So I'm feeling maybe a 3 out of 5. Like it's a middle ground. I feel Giga Ranger's action. The actual action itself was good. So I'm torn here. I think I'm going to put it in A because I feel I need to be aware that I am biased. I am very much a Super Sentai fanboy, and my inclination is to put them in higher tiers. Then I have to consider the music of Giga Ranger, and Giga Ranger has some awesome tracks. Yeah, so it's going to go right back up there to get everyone's backs. Yeah, I am well aware that this is not going to be in any way subjective. But the music in Giga Ranger is... It was one of the ones as well that brings it... Like, it's confident enough to bring attention to its music, because about halfway through the series, it did like a character song karaoke contest, where the ending, the credits song was replaced each week with a character song from a different character. And they're all great songs. Okay. The fun for Giga Ranger? You know, yeah, Giga Ranger I feel is fun. I kind of am talking about it now, and particularly the villains. I want to go back and watch it, like, now. You know what, yeah, if someone could, you know, get over kind of how silly it can sometimes seem a little in the beginning with Jan's antics, I feel like I'd be quite confident in recommending that as a first series. Next on this along the line is Go Onger. Go Onger is maybe one that might be I think it might be a B now. Because the plot of Go Onger was okay. It was the villains were a group who were trying to pollute Earth to kind of terraform it into a world that they could live in. So unlike I suppose on the morale side of it, it did have the good point of it was there were lessons in there about like looking after the environment, not littering, reducing pollution and all that. So it had a good message, but the plot itself was kind of a bit flat at times. Like there wasn't... I can't remember there being all too much of interest about the overall story itself. The characters definitely make up for that a wee bit, because the characters have some interesting moments. It's definitely a more comedy-focused one. So I'd say the characters would have me considering me putting it in A, but not actually enough to put it in an A. Because it's fun to watch, it's a good series, like the characters are good, but it's comparing it to the titles I've put above it, I can't really do much there. The suits in action, I feel, yeah, also keep it kind of just in the middle there. Like, they're not bad. They're actually kind of cool in some ways, but they're not. Go on Wings have nice suits. And the mechs I'm not overly fussed on, especially... Oh, excuse me. Especially when it gets onto the Engine G9 and G12, which are just... they are just a mess of combining every mech they have into one big mech, and it... I'm not overly a fan of that style. It's been going on for an hour and only has 6 series. Well, to be fair, about half an hour of this stream has been a waste of time. But hello, Kuba. Hello. No, because I started up, I then realized that the tier list didn't work, so I had to resize all the pictures to make them exactly the same size or it wouldn't work. I then had to... Well, I then started the video. Well, started the stream, and Mooney fortunately came in to tell me that my mic was still muted. So I've just been having a day of it. And that's not even counting the fact that it's an hour late, because I mean, I have no excuse, other than the fact I managed to sleep in until nearly 2 o'clock. Because I may or may not have been not sleeping correctly for the last few evenings. Woke up at 8 this morning and was like, I can go and, you know, I can go back to bed. And I should not have gone back to bed. It is both a blessing and a curse to be unemployed. Oh, but where was I? Yeah. Go Under's sits in action. Yeah, I think still firmly in the middle tier. Music, I don't think I was really that fussed on Go Under's music. The theme song was catchy. It does have the Go on Wings theme song though. Just on the Go on Wings theme song, I won't lower it down to C. I was considering putting it down to C, but Go on Wings theme song's in there, so no. The overall fun and recommendation of it? I think... I don't think I could recommend it as a first series. But if someone like watches a couple of our series and is like, okay, I like Super Sentai, then I'm like, yeah, Go Under's a fun watch. Like it is enjoyable, it's fun to watch, but it just doesn't hit the same as the others on this list. Why are the... Oh, I'm just going to ask why the things that are in S tier, S tier? There's a few... I'm mainly using 5 criteria when I'm judging these, which is the storyline, the characters, the suits in action, what actually makes it tokusatsu, the music, and just the overall... the fun value of it, which is quite arbitrary. I know, it's just how much fun I had watching it, and how much I'd recommend it to people. I guess the easiest way to summarize it is the ones in S tier. These are the ones where kind of, if someone who hasn't watched any Super Sentai came to me saying, hey, I'm interested in watching this, would you recommend any of them? These 3 here, these are the ones I would definitely recommend first. A tier are one I would recommend, but kind of maybe not as your first Sentai, because they're not quite as good, maybe, at least in my opinion. B... You know what, yeah, Go Under I feel is just a middle-of-the-road one. If you like Sentai, you'll like Go Under, but if... I feel like kind of... These ones are ones I feel you could enjoy even if you don't like the franchise as a whole or the genre. I feel the stories and the characters are strong enough in these ones to... like, hold your attention even if you're not a fan. Go Under, I feel... Yeah, if you don't like Super Sentai, you won't like... I don't feel you'd like Go Under. Next, though, is Shinkenger, the Samurai Rangers. The plot of Shinkenger? The plot of Shinkenger, I guess, was fairly standard. Like, bad guy trying to take over the world, destroy humanity, and all that. Rangers fight against him. But I feel it's really elevated by, like, how the positioning of that. Because the Rangers are not... Oh, the Red Ranger is like the lord, like the head of the Shiba clan, the Shiba family, and the other 4 Rangers are his retainers. Like it's like being like this Ranger team isn't just formed here; it's been something that's gone back hundreds of years, traveling back through these 5 families, which I suppose overlaps into the characters a wee bit. In that, like, there's a very interesting dynamic here because the Red Ranger is above the others. And they don't just use that as a plot... Well, they do use that as a plot device, but it's not like in some series where the Red Ranger is important just because he's, you know, it's main character syndrome. But the Red Ranger... Shiba... the Shiba... Oh, no, please don't put that image in my head. I love Shinkenger. It's one of my favorite series. I don't want to have to watch it and think, oh no, they're all dogs. It is cute. Okay, I'm not. Sorry, I'm now imagining like a chibi anime spin-off where they're all just a bunch of dogs going out and saving the world with the power of Japanese language. But Shinkenger characters definitely, more than any other here, have Shinkenger's characters are. I feel confident enough to say, like, the best characters I've watched in Super Sentai. Like, they feel, compared to other characters, like, they feel so much like real people interacting with each other. Oh, particularly in the interactions with the Red Ranger, because they all have different relations. Like, the Green Ranger is kind of... He doesn't really want to be part of this. He doesn't care about all this retainers and lord stuff. He's just... I'm fighting because, you know, I was trained to, my family says I should, but I really don't care too much about this. And I certainly don't want to, you know, be licking the boots of some random stranger I don't know. You have another who's, like, very... The Blue Ranger is, like, complete opposite. He is fully into the idea of, like, this is his obligation, this is his duty, this is the role he's inherited. And then, of course, that means the Blue and the Green Ranger don't get along because they have such conflicting personalities. And then, it's just... I can't go into too much detail because I don't have the time. But Shinkenger, character-wise, I am still feel confident. Like, it's a 6 out of 5. It's up here in terms of characters. It's in the double S tier. Oh, the suits in Shinkenger? The suits are cool. The action is amazing. Because it is, again, like, samurai themed. So the sword fighting in it is really cool. Oh. But the suits are okay. They do have the Inromaru, the upgrade form that is awesome. Because again, it has like white flowy coattails, and anything with coattails or flowing bits is bonus points for me. But the mechs themselves, I'm not too fussed on, to be fair. The origami stuff was cool, but yeah, I think that's one thing where it could bring it down a bit, but the characters and plot are so good, I think it keeps it up here. Music I feel is a 4 out of 5 as well. So yeah, Shinkenger would probably be an A or a B without the characters. It'd probably be a B without the characters, but the characters carry it so much. Because when it comes on to considering how fun the show is, yeah, I feel like if anyone asked me just what Super Sentai series would you recommend to start with, I feel it would be Shinkenger. I would recommend any of these, but if I was limited to one, it would be Shinkenger. Violently vibrating while enemies. This Power Rangers. Oh, that's probably from the. That's quite possibly from the debut of Shinken Gold, the Gold Ranger. No, but the whole in Japanese media, particularly like related to samurai stuff, I think it's Ei no Jutsu, or just Ei, the art of drawing your sword from its sheath and slashing in the same motion is kind of like, yeah, Ei sheath is you see it in quite a lot of media, but I do remember, like, specifically, like, the debut episode for the Gold Ranger had a scene where he was doing that. Because that's his whole fighting style, is Ei. Yeah. Shinkenger, the breathing form, right? Hmm. Also, I haven't actually looked into much, like, real-life Ei, how it works. I know it's quite difficult. Because getting the angle right to draw the sword and slash in one motion without it getting caught. But anyway, I've been going on about Shinkenger enough. I have to keep going on. Next is Ghost Sager. Ghost Sager was... The plot in it was quite interesting because it had the multiple villain angle again. The drawing slash is the pride of katana combat. Ooh. I think it depends on it's well. It is definitely cool and require. Actually, I don't think I'm qualified to really say anything on it. I did practice kendo for a little bit, but we never worked on Ei. Oh. Ghost Sager was, yeah, about a team of, they were actually angels in this one. It had the same thing that made me put Bowkenger and Dega Ranger in the top tier, in that it had multiple groups of villains. Though in this case it was more a linear progression. Because they had one group in the first 16 episodes, and then they defeated that group, and then there was another group, and then they defeated that group, and then there was another group. Which I quite liked that idea, because I think it helped like the power balancing of the show as well. That it wasn't just that the enemies were withholding their strongest people. It was just that, you know, it was a completely new enemy who happened to be stronger. But the characters in Ghost Sager, they're not bad characters, but they just don't stand out as much. So I feel that kind of pulls it back down to an A tier. And then we had the suits and the action in it. The suits were kind of cool, and the mechs were okay. Like, they weren't bad, but again, I feel this is another case where it just brings it down to more of an average. But I do think I think I'll keep it in B when I consider the music, because Ghost Sager has some pretty nice music tracks in it. And overall fun? I feel I have to put it back down in B. It's like a high B. Like it would. I could maybe put it in A, but I don't. I feel it's I feel it's closer to Go Onger than it is to Time Ranger and Magi Ranger. And it's one of those ones where it's not. I don't feel it quite holds its own enough outside of being Super Sentai to like hold the interest of someone who isn't interested in the franchise. So I feel this is another one for people who enjoy the franchise. I don't want to put it higher because I know I personally love, like, there's one particular plot development that I think is awesome that I can't really talk about because it's spoilers, but I don't feel that's enough, especially because it's kind of a end of the series things in both side grips. It just depends what. You want to start with the slash going upward. Oh. You are already talking like leagues above what I know. So, I say I practiced kendo for a bit, but it was for like 2 or 3 months, because to even get to the lesson it was like an hour's drive and then an hour back, and it was late at night, so it was a bit much for me to be able to afford. Okay, but next on the list is Gokaiger. Gokaiger probably has something worth mentioning, that this is the 35th anniversary series of Super Sentai. And it had the feature of, being the 35th anniversary series. I don't know why they decided the 35th was the one to do an anniversary series. Is it Sai? Oh yeah, Sai is a sheath for in both Sai. Oh right, so that's talking about how you grip the sheath. Oh, okay. I thought Sai was referring to like a method, like a technique for gripping the sword. Oh. Okay, but yeah. So Gokaiger was pirate based, and the Rangers were kind of reluctant heroes, but like good reluctant heroes. Like they were always like finding excuses to save people. Like kind of like, we don't actually want to save you, but this guy blew up the curry shop where we were having our lunch, and we're a bit pissed off, so we're going to kill him now. It definitely has nothing to do with the fact we're saving your lives. So they were kind of, they had that, what's it called, like that kind of like roguish, that rogue streak going. We're like, we're not the good guys, we just happen to be on your side. But then, they really are good guys. It was just an entire team of tsunderes, is all it is. Yeah. But the idea that they were pirates as well kind of leans into the aesthetic of, they're an anniversary series. They had the power to transform into all the previous Rangers. Because, they pirated them. Pirated copies. Still a joke I'm glad they made in the show itself. The plot for that? The plot, I think, it wasn't an S-tier plot. It was about them, like, trying to find this big treasure. But the key to the treasure was to have the grand power of all the previous Super Sentai. If you draw a slash and it depends on how you hold this, you're going to curves. Oh yeah, yeah. No, yeah. I understand. I understand now when you put that together, because I have heard Saya as sheath before, but I'm not bilingual enough to speak English and Japanese at the same time. I need to actually switch my brain from one to the other. Yeah, no, I think I can understand now what you were going on about. Because no, it was somewhat similar in Kendo. Like we weren't doing EI, but we did still have to. The way we were taught to draw the sword, because even without a sheath, you hold it at your side as if it wasn't a sheath, and kind of you use the hand that's gripping that as the mouth of the sheath. But we were always taught to, the way you draw your sword should be, or draw the katana should be, in a method that kind of, it's not an attack, but you're aiming to not, what's the right word? You still need to kind of keep the sheath between, the weapon between you and your opponent, from the moment the sword leaves the sheath. Oh. But I need to focus. I'm getting too distracted. I have 50 minutes left. But Gokaiger. Yeah. So the plot was a lot of them going back. It was great, I suppose, for, I think particularly for people, like, for long-term fans, because they went back and brought a lot of, like, legacy actors from the previous series for them to interact with and kind of learn the lessons that the other series taught. It was a very, very, very well done anniversary series compared to, I know when a lot of people compared it to Kamen Rider's Decade, their anniversary series. So actually, I don't know if it's... It might be interesting as well for people who haven't watched Sentai to watch, because that gives them kind of a brief look at each of the other series. Yeah, and I think if I add the characters into it, it definitely goes up. As well, the characters were definitely a bag of oddballs in Gokaiger. Like you had the pirate captain, you had the formerly homeless thief, you had the professor who really is not suited to this environment at all. You have the ex-military the ex-military commando who used to work for the bad guys, and then you just straight up have a princess. And then of course having the Sixth Ranger in the anniversary series straight up be a fanboy of the series was a great touch. Guy is a great character. Yeah, I feel it's an interesting one to watch. Like, if you start with that, to give yourself an idea of what other series are like, because it's definitely one that has the ability to hold its own story as well. It's not purely reliant on being a legacy series. The suits are pretty cool as well, and I did quite like the mechs in it as well. Like, they didn't ever go like with the combine all the mechs into one. Do I suppose the grand powers were a bit eh? I can take or leave them. But yeah, the suits were... It's not... They definitely weren't bad enough for me to bring it down a tier. But if there wasn't above tier, it wouldn't be moving from this one. Music as well, though. Gokaiger has great music. Not least of all because it kind of technically has the music from every other previous season. Well, not every other. But a lot of the times they'd use the theme songs from the previous series they were fighting with. And overall fun. It's just a great series. So I'm fairly confident having Gokaiger be in the S tier as well. It's the one I would be a little more cautious about recommending as a first Sentai, because some people might find that not knowing anything about it beforehand and it being such a legacy-based season might put them off. But I feel it's still... The other good points are enough to keep it in that tier. Oh, oh dear. Now we have the outlier. This is the logo for Hikonin Sentai Akiba Ranger. The unofficial Sentai that is... it's unofficial. It's not part of the main series. Except Zenkaiger kind of made it official. I think. It's in a weird place, because it's not part of the main series, and generally is not talked about as part of the main series, because it was very much written for adults. It's all about people who, they're not... It's a weird plot to explain, because they're technically not actually Rangers for most of it, maybe? They just imagine they are. They have... Their transformation devices are just... They make them hallucinate that they're Power Rangers. Oh, and it's all about them saving Akihabara from, you know, losing its status as the otaku place. Oh. I don't know why I included this. Because it's kind of official in the way that Zenkaiger kind of almost canonized it. And it is made by Toei, and it is produced by the producer of all the other series, Hate Saburo. But positioning it here in the franchise is... because it's definitely an... It's mid? I've put it in mid temporarily because I'm trying to figure out... I put it in this list, but... It's hard to judge on the same thing, because you don't watch it for you don't watch Akiba Ranger for the same reason you watch the others. No, like it's got more adult humor. It's definitely not the same Save the World kind of story. I think I would put it in A tier. I'm trying to overall, like, the plot, characters, the suits in action aren't particularly great in it, because it's more than anything, it's a parody, but it's like an official parody. But the characters are interesting, the plot's fun. I don't think I could put it in S tier, because I don't feel like I could recommend it to anyone who hasn't watched Super Sentai. Because I feel a lot of the humor as well does stem from it being a parody, and if you don't know the source material for a parody, a lot of the jokes I feel can fall flat. So I'll put Akiba Ranger there. And I think, yeah, I'm happy it being there. The unofficial Sentai that is... It's still in a weird place. I was very surprised when one of the children's series brought the Akiba Rangers into it, even if it was for like a brief moment. Especially because it was, what, nearly 10 years later? Oh, the next series on the list is Go Busters. Go Busters is... I've seen a lot of people who aren't a particular fan of Go Busters, but I quite like it. The plot was good. The plot is kind of an A-tier plot, I feel, by Sentai standards. And that's... yeah. The Rangers are like security, almost, for a power company, which sounds a bit weird. It's a little... There's a new form of energy called Enetron that they're trying to protect, and the bad guys from another dimension are trying to steal it so their leader can manifest himself into the real world. And the Rangers' job is just to, stop their attempts in the real world to steal it. But the plot definitely evolves, and it's again another one based, I feel, on having great villains. Because when we consider the characters, you've got Enter and Escape, who are some of the best villains, I feel, in Sentai. And you also... the main characters themselves are also great. Particularly once you add in the extra Rangers, Jin and Jay. So, Jin, especially because he's already a legacy actor. He was the Yellow Ranger back in Magi Ranger. So yeah, characters definitely brings this up to S tier. And then next is Suits. Suits, definitely. Go Busters has some of my favorite, aesthetic and action in the show. The suits, for one, are, I believe, the only Super Sentai series where the suits were leather suits, rather than spandex, or whatever other materials they use for the suits. And, they look so cool, and they've got... they just have this kind of... very modern look to them. And then the mechs as well. The mechs themselves look cool. But what really gets me is the cockpits in them, because they're not... A lot of Super Sentai ones are kind of they'll sit or stand in front of a pedestal, and the pedestal will have in Gokaiger it's a pirate wheel, in Samurai it's a place for them to put their sword. But in Go Busters it was a proper... The walls were covered in buttons and monitors and levers and switches. And it actually looked like, all the different controls you'd need to pilot these complicated machines. Music for Go Busters? Music was... I feel it was kind of... Music for Go Busters was kind of mid. Maybe a little bit above average. Because yeah, it did have the gold-silver theme song again. And I have a soft spot for duets. But yeah, even then, it's not enough. Even if it was mid music, I don't think that's enough. It's enough to counter the story, characters, and aesthetic design of Go Busters. And then when I consider fun as well, definitely it's got a solid place up here. Then Kyoryuger, the third dinosaur team, and the first one I watched, I think. Yeah, because I didn't watch I haven't watched Ranger and I haven't watched Ranger yet. Kyoryuger is the plot. The plot's kind of mid, to be honest. It's not. It's kind of your typical bad guys came to take over the world. Good guys need to stop them using the power of dinosaurs. There's not really too much about the overarching plot that stands out to me. The characters, though, definitely bring it up to at least an A. There are a lot of characters because it is the first like 10-man team. There's not a lot of scene. Itself mainly focuses on the main 6, but there are 4 additional rangers to it. Oh, G-Ranger from an angry video game. Oh yeah, G-Ranger is it's the one that Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, like the original series, is adapted from. So it feels like one I should have watched, but I've just never gotten around to it. Because there's a lot of them I've been meaning to watch, to be fair. I've watched a bit of Sun Vulcan, I've watched a bit of Changeman, and I've watched a bit of Abba Ranger, and a bit of Kaka Ranger as well. There's a few of the older ones I've started on. Oh, Brutally Sung, do you want to? Oh, Super Ranger, Super Ranger. I can't remember the theme song for it. I just remember that. I remember as well, like, mishearing it the first time and thinking it was saying Jew Ranger, which is maybe a parody we don't need in reality. Or maybe we do need it, I don't know. Oh, but that was before I was... Yep, that's what I misheard it as the first time. Before I learned to read a little bit of Japanese. Right, no, oh no, it's not Jew, it's Zhu. Which sounds very similar in English, I suppose. I suppose it sounds rather similar in any language, the two sounds. Oh. But Kyoryuger characters... Yeah, the characters are all solid. It was definitely a more... I want to say more comedy focused. Like it was definitely a more light-hearted series, which is nice. I do like the things being light-hearted. The suits... when I think about it, the suits were okay. Like I don't dislike them, but they're, as far as Super Sentai suits go, they're kind of just, you know, they're the quality I expect. But they're not more, they're not less. Which is that enough to drop them down? I feel so, but then music. I feel the music in G-Ranger is great. Not least of all, helped, I think, by the fact that it is kind of music as a sub-motif in it. You've always got dinosaurs being the main one, but like, the Rangers in this like actually dance when they transform. And it's not even just... At first I thought it was just kind of Super Sentai being Super Sentai, you know, it's a kid's show, let them dance during transformation sequences, but they do make it, like, they do give it, like, there's a plot reason why they do so. And music ends up becoming, like, quite a big part of the series. And even the summer movie for Kyoryuger was a musical of sorts. Overall fun... The overall fun factor makes me want to bring it up to S, but at the same time, I feel it's one of these ones that I couldn't recommend to someone who hasn't watched Sentai before, I feel this is like a good, like, second recommendation. Like, if someone likes one of the ones up here, then I can go, yeah, Kyoryuger is quite good if you like that. But it's definitely... It does feel like definitely more like a... Again, it is more light-hearted and fun. It doesn't have the same, like, serious plot and such I feel the others have. There are some, like, high-stakes moments. Like, the final battle, the way it's done in Kyoryuger is just... It is the best, like, roll call scene in Super Sentai, I feel. But, yeah, I feel, yeah, Kyoryuger is... a solid A. Maybe leaning towards being an S, but I don't feel it quite makes it. TalkUser. Nope, don't put you in C. TalkUser is... It's about trains and a group of people, a team brought in to protect the Rainbow Line from the Shadow. The Shadow's goal is to cover the world in darkness, I believe. And TalkUser's fight with the power of imagination. Like KyoryUser, it's a very light-hearted, more comedy-focused one. Though that doesn't stop it from having some, particularly towards the end, some really hard-hitting scenes. Like, there's one of the episode previews I remember watching, and even now, like, when I rewatch it, or I'm watching compilations of the episode previews, there's a certain preview that genuinely makes me tear up. I mean, that's partly just because I'm a baby, but... Oh, it is... It's a fun one. You watch it for a bit of a laugh. The overall plot isn't bad. There are some nice villains in it. I feel I'd put it in a similar category overall to KyoryUser. The suit design and action, though, I feel do bring it down a bit. Because I'm not overly a fan of the suits in TalkUser. Even the power-up's not overly great, and the mechs are a bit... Hold up a moment, can I find myself a picture of... That picture of the mech from... the TalkUser. There's a picture of the mech from TalkUser. Ah, yes, there it is. It's a picture that's a little bit memed. Right, so if I just... Give me a moment. And I've messed up all my... Where are we going? Here we go. Browse. Where's my pictures? TTT. Is that endless space? Oh, did that change what monitor I had displayed? Quite possibly. My background picture I have is the endless space. Is it the endless? Is it the endless? It might be the Endless Legend. No, I think it is the Endless Space wallpapers. There we go. There we go. This is the mech from TalkUser. I'm not going to say anything about it, and I'm just going to let you consider this for a moment. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, TalkUser's design and aesthetic is, What do you do with that? You can... Well, what he actually did in the show is he used it to break a coffin. He was trapped in a coffin, and that's how he got out. Yep. Well, welcome to the world of Super Sentai. It can get a little mad at times. I'm glad it was so easy to find that picture online, but of course it would be. So, yeah, but that... yeah. No, I blame Sapphire for this again, but I just thought of kind of just... Imagine the railing you could do with that thing. Oh dear, I'm going to regret saying that in about 5 seconds. But yeah, TalkUser, the suit design does bring it down a bit for me. Music? TalkUser did have good music. Like, really nice music, actually. So, maybe pull it up here again? And overall, fun. I feel it's in a similar position to KyoryUser. Not quite as good as KyoryUser, though. It's one where, if you like other Sentai and you just want something that's fun and easy to watch, TalkUser's there for you. But I'd recommend KyoryUser before I would recommend TalkUser. Yeah. Yeah. don't mind me. I'm just trying to move on as quickly as possible from that line. Oh, why would you say that? Okay. Okay. Now we're getting into the part where so far I've been very talking quite highly of Super Sentai, which because you know, I have been feeling a bit bad for, but also I'm a fanboy, I'm going to speak highly of it. But Ninja. The plot of Ninja is your average protected world thing. There's a group of bad guys who want to take over the world, a group of good guys who need to stop them. There's not much nuance in there, other than one of the bad guys was originally trained by the mentor of the good guys, but that's not too much thing. The characters, though, there are some like cool characters. Kinji, Kasumi, and Yakumo all have good moments, but on the whole, this series suffers from making a lot of characters caricatures. And particularly the... I was so sick of hearing Takaharu's Moetekta! I was just done. The suit design wasn't bad. Though... the mech was interesting. I feel it's not enough to bring it up to a B, but it keeps it into C territory. And then we have music. Music for Ninja... Kinji had good songs. I can remember that. But otherwise, again, it felt kind of average. So Ninja's, I think, sticking down in C tier for me. And then overall fun... It had its moments. It had its moments. Enough to keep it out of D tier. Just about. But Ninja is definitely one of those ones where I'm kind of... I don't feel I could recommend unless you're set. Like, you know you like Super Sentai. Then I'm like, sure, you can give Ninja a go. Don't expect much from it, but it does have its moments. Oh, and then we have Zyuohger. Zyuohger... I was a bit unsure about... This is one where I'm very unsure about. It's on one side, the overall plot I like the idea of. Like, the villains are people who've come to Earth for a game. It's blood games. Like, the evil villain is just a guy who enjoys watching this sport and sending monsters down to attack people in interesting ways. And if he enjoys it enough, he gives them a continue, which is what lets them become large, which is what turns them into giants. So I feel the plot actually, like, thinking of it like that, I maybe put it up into A. Then I think the characters bring it down, because the characters, they're not the characters they are in Ninja, but they are a bit flat, I feel. The Sixth Ranger was quite interesting for a moment. I feel that he could have been handled better, but the idea was good. The suits as well, unfortunately, bring Zyuohger down, because the actual, like, the Ranger suits were... I can't help but think they look like pajamas for some reason. I just can't help it. And then the mechs themselves, it was a neat concept, I guess, that all the mechs are cubes, but it ends up looking a bit... it's not particularly nice to look at, the mechs in Zyuohger. The music... music's nothing really to speak much about, so I won't go up or down on Zyuohger's music. The theme song was pretty awesome. And overall fun value, Zyuohger is... It's like Ninja. If you like Super Sentai and like you're firm on that, kind of like, okay, I've watched a couple of series, I think I like this, then I can say, like, yeah, you can give Zyuohger a try. It's definitely got its moments, and it's got more of them than Ninja, I feel. And it's more solid on the whole than Ninja. But it is a little flat compared to the other series above it. And then Q-Ranger. Right, I guess I need to defend this now. Q-Ranger's plot actually should have been good. So if I was starting as normal, Q Ranger would be up here. Because Q Ranger was very much kind of... It decided to up the scale. Like there was a team of... It was going to be a team of 9. They were defending the galaxy. And then you have the characters. And the characters just... the characters. Because the characters... I don't feel... A lot of people think it was just that they tried to have too many characters, but I just feel they just didn't handle them correctly. Because you can have a lot of characters and still, like, develop them well, and still... all you need to do is just have them be decent characters. But in Q Ranger, they just devolved them all just to being catchphrases and caricatures. Oh, like... I don't... The Q Ranger... The Yosha Lucky trauma from this. I am done hearing the word lucky after watching that. Like every character had like catchphrases or like one. They just kind of took one aspect of their personality and kind of like, nope, this is their entire personality. Which is a shame because like when I look at the suits, to be fair, the mechs weren't. I don't really care too much for the mechs in Q Ranger, but the suits themselves are awesome. The suits and weapons and the action was pretty cool. The music, it had its moments. The theme song was good. Stinger had some great moments. To be fair, when I talk about the characters, I do have to say Stinger was a good character. If Stinger had been the protagonist, and I'm so glad he did get his own spin-off movie because his spin-off movie was good. It showed what Q Ranger could have been like. But overall fun, the fun factor definitely solidifies its place at the bottom of the pile because Q Ranger is the only Super Sentai series where I consciously just, like, I got to two episodes before the finale, and I was just, no, I'm not invested in this. I can't be bothered to watch the last 2 episodes. Like, if a show has gotten me that close to finishing it, and I decide then that, nah, I just can't be bothered. I think that says everything. I know some people watched it through and really liked it, but I know like I'm not alone in like putting Q Ranger at the bottom of the pile. It's just, it could have been so much. I think especially when they released the episode of Stinger standalone movie. That showed what it could have been like if they just had better character development. Oh. I apologize for my avatar freaking out, by the way. I have a itch on the very tip of my nose that does not want to go away. And of course, my face tracking is not set up to track my hand, so I move my hand in front of my face, and it makes it think my hand is my face. Oh, anyway, to come out of the pit a bit, Lupin Ranger versus Pat Ranger. This, plot-wise, I think puts it straight into S because it was a really unique idea. I feel, which is. We don't have one team. We have 2 teams that are competing. Because Lupin Ranger, obviously from like Arsène Lupin, they're Phantom Thieves. It's actually this is actually Kuba. Watch I don't know if you noticed that my Phantom Thief team in Persona 5 is called Lupin Ranger. This series is why. Oh, and then Pat Ranger is a police team. That comes from police cars in Japan are called patrol cars, abbreviated to Pat cars. So Pat Ranger, Patrol Rangers, kind of thing. But it was kind of, there were bad guys as well. Like, you had kind of like this interdimensional mafia. The Phantom Thieves trying to steal these treasures that the mafia had stolen from Arsène Lupin. And then the police trying to catch these criminals, and then also the Lupin Ranger, because the Lupin Ranger are these random people running around with mechs and all these really powerful artifacts. And just having that kind of 2 teams competing, I feel went really well. I think maybe I do have to bring it down to A though, because for the execution, because they ended up really favoring the Lupin Rangers into story over the Pat Rangers, which I feel, it kind of robs it from what was promised. Oh, is it we were promised like this would be like two teams fighting, like, and the whole hype was kind of, which side will you cheer on? And then it kind of feels bad, like, if you're on the side that supports the Pat Rangers and, you know, your characters start getting less screen time and the stuff they do in the story isn't quite as important. Yeah, it just felt a little bad. The characters, compared to, like, the last seasons we had, the last 3 seasons, like Ninja, Zyuohger, and Kyuranger, Lupin versus Pat Ranger definitely had more interesting characters. I don't feel enough to bring them up into the S tier again, but they're not falling down into the B tier, I don't feel. The suits and mech design? I feel again is a similar situation. It's not good enough to bring them up, but not bad enough to bring them down. To be fair, I did quite like the suits. The mech's not as much of a fan on, especially because they decided to make the decision with the like big combiner mech to have it just be CGI rather than a physical suit, which is something Sentai's been doing more of recently that I'm not personally a fan of, because I like tokusatsu because it's real. So I like seeing a physical, like, actual suit there. I'm not as much of a fan on the CGI stuff. Music in Lupin Ranger, I think that's enough to bring it up again. The music in Lupin Ranger versus Pat Ranger is good. Very good. And overall fun. I think that has to bring it down. It doesn't quite live up to the standards here, but it's in a similar situation to Tokyuger and Kyuranger. In that, yeah, it's one I'd recommend if someone's watched another Sentai. It's like, kind of, okay, I like this. This is kind of cool. It's one I can recommend as like a second one to watch, but it's not kind of a first watch, I don't feel. Okay. And then we have Ryusoulger. Ryusoulger. Sure, yes. The Dino Knight Sentai. The plot of this one, again, kind of your standard bad guys are trying to invade Earth, good guys defend it. The characters, I feel the characters are kind of a similar like Zyuohger situation. Like they're not Ninja or Kyuranger bad, but they're a bit flat. Again, also like Zyuohger, the Sixth Ranger had quite had some quite interesting development. Like he had an interesting character motivation that I've not seen before or elsewhere in Super Sentai. That I kind of appreciated. It was a bit something fresh to the table. The suits in Ryusoulger were pretty awesome though. The mechs as well. Well, the mechs were interesting. They were gimmicky, I suppose. You know, overall, I think Ryusoulger can just about fit up into the B tier. It's on the lower side of B, I feel, but the music was okay. The theme song was definitely awesome. And then just the overall fun, you know, I enjoyed it. I think I remember enjoying it more than Zyuohger. Next, we have Kyuranger. Kyurager's plot was also kind of your normal, like, bad guys invade, good guys try to stop them. There weren't really too many new takes in the overall plot. It's almost a little similar to Go Under, I suppose, in that they came over trying to dirty the Earth. Except it was less about kind of pollution and more kind of getting rid of anything beautiful. Anything that sparkled. Which is why, you know, we have the Sparkly Rangers. Oh, so the characters were kind of interesting. I feel not enough to bring them up, but not like Zhuo's or Ryu Soldier and bring them down. Like they didn't fall quite as flat, I don't feel. What else was I going to say about characters? I feel that's all I can say about the characters. Part of me's a little tempted to maybe bring it up to A, but I don't feel they're quite that good. The suits, though. The suits and the mechs in it, I really like in Major. All sparkly and stuff. I feel like I can definitely come up here. And music? Music solidifies, I think, in A. If the suits weren't enough to bring it up to A, the music definitely would have been. Because it's another one where they did, during the end credits, kind of a character song battle where for 8 episodes, the ending credits was replaced with a different character song for different characters. Potentially loses points on music for having Pen Pineapple Apple Pen be part of the soundtrack in one of the specials. But, you know, it was a special. It was potentially not canon, so I can overlook that this one time. Oh. Then the overall fun... Yeah, Cure Major was just fun. Cure Major felt very... I feel it's like... I said during the plot, like it was nothing special. Like it was just your typical bad guys versus good guy. Bad guys invade, good guys defend the Earth. But I feel, as well, it was kind of... It was that refreshing in that they weren't trying to do anything new. And they focused on just doing the tropes well. And I feel that kind of works out. I feel like Cure Major... Yeah, I feel like to me Cure Major is just... It's a solid Sentai series. It doesn't try to do anything out there. It doesn't try to be anything more than it is. Which means it doesn't succeed at doing anything special, but it also doesn't fail. So I feel it's a solid place there. It also gets bonus points for me because, you know, it had a crossover with Symphogear, which is anime I quite enjoy. Not least of all because it reminds me a lot of Tokusatsu stuff. But we're down to our last 3. And next up is Zenkaiser, the 45th anniversary series. It's also the COVID series, so I do have to give it a little bit of slack, because this was the one that was started during lockdowns. Cure Major's later half, I think, got hit by some of like the lockdown stuff over COVID. But the overall plot of Zenkaiser was kind of interesting. It had potential. It was the bad guy was like these interdimensional tyrants who were sealing different dimensions into little gears and trying to make theirs like the only one. And all these gears like included like the other universes the different Super Sentai came from. And of course then the good guys that use the powers of previous Sentai to fight back. Unlike Gokaiger, they don't transform into the other Rangers, they just borrow the powers of them. The characters... characters were okay. I feel maybe the characters bring it down to a B. Like, they weren't... It's maybe bad to say they bring them down. I feel it kind of averages out. With... Like, the plot wasn't overly good. The characters weren't overly good. I'd say not overly good. Like, they were still above average, I feel. The suits, on the other hand, at first I was interested in the idea of like the suits being more like bulky and like more armored than usual, but I ended up not being a fan. If all the suits had been like Zenkaiser's, like the main Ranger's suit, that would have been a different story, because that was a pretty awesome suit. But I feel for now that has to be brought down to C. The music, the theme song was good, and Well, there were a couple of good tracks in there. Maybe enough to bring it up to B again, I think. Yeah. Yeah, music I'd say is good enough to bring it up to a B. The overall fun value, you know what? It was. I do remember. I do remember being fun. I think it's a high B. So yeah, because Zenkaiser, I remember watching and going through it, and yeah, the plot wasn't the best, the characters weren't the best, but it was kind of fun. It was fun. It was just enjoyable. Like there was nothing. My words are failing me here. It was just one of those ones that was kind of, I watched it and I enjoyed it. I can't say like there were. It wasn't. It didn't stand out too much to me. But yeah, I suppose that's the best way to stand out. I know I enjoyed watching it. I remember enjoying it and being happy I watched it. But I can't think of much it did to be enjoyable. So I feel it's one of those nothing shows. You can stick it on and not think much about it. Like maybe have it in the background of what while you're doing something else. But yeah, I feel that's where Zenkaiser stands for me. Next though, Dawn Brothers. The plot of Dawn Brothers, I feel I kind of want to say A. To be fair, the plot was a bit, it tried to go too many places at once and nowhere at the same time. But it was interesting for what it was, because it was definitely different. Like, there were several different factions kind of working against each other and working with each other. And it was just, it definitely wasn't your typical Sentai. Bad guys are invading, good guys fight against them. But what brings up, I have to put it in S tier when I consider characters, because that's what I think carries Dawn Brothers. Is it was such a different Super Sentai to me because the characters were so all over the place. Like there was so little unity in the team, and I loved it. It was such a fresh take to kind of like they're a team and they mostly sometimes work as a team, but there was like such conflict in it, and the characters had such interesting storylines. Except Shinny, the Blue Ranger, Saru brother didn't have. Sarahara was a bit. I don't know what. I can't recall much of his story, but all the other characters had like interesting little stories. I feel it's a series that could have maybe done with like some extra runtime to be able to give more characters more development and like fully flesh out their things. I feel they introduced too many things to resolve in 50 episodes. And maybe, like, not introduced some of them too late to resolve. At least in a truly satisfying way. But the characters... That's why I watched Dawn Brothers for the characters, really. The suits as well. I like the suits. I do feel maybe some negative points because... Again, there was a bit of a reliance on CGI in this one. That we had 2 of the Rangers were CGI. Which, to be fair, I think it speaks to how good the characters are in Dawn Brothers that I stopped caring about this. But it does still, like, when I consider it, I do have to subtract points for it. And one of the big mechs was CGI as well. As was... Actually, a couple of the mechs were CGI, because you had Murasame's mech. But the Ranger suits themselves were pretty awesome, as were the bad guys, had some cool suits. So yeah, I think Dawn Brothers, overall fun. Fun is almost tempted to put it up into S again. I think I'll put it as there. It's hard to say, because it felt so different to so many other Super Sentai series. It's an A tier one I feel I might recommend to someone as their first Sentai. Or maybe as a second Sentai if they've watched one of these and kind of like, I kind of like it, but I'm not, these aren't quite for me. I can recommend Dawn Brothers as kind of, okay, you might not like the franchise, but maybe this one series might be interesting to you because it is quite different. Okay. But yeah, Dawn Brothers, yeah. I very much liked Dawn Brothers. I think, and it kind of was nice for me because it was the first series in a while where I felt I probably got a Sentai I really, really enjoyed. But we're on to the last one, which is this year's currently airing Super Sentai, Osama Sentai King Osier. And King Osier, the plot, jumping it right up to S. Because this is, again, like Dawn Brothers, it's going somewhere different. It's not taking place on Earth. Like, it's in a completely different world. Which some Sentai have tried to do. Like, Q Ranger tried, but then it ended up everyone came to Earth and lived there anyway. And other than that, I think that it's the only one that's kind of... Well, I say it doesn't take place on Earth. It takes place on a planet called Chikyu. Chikyu, or... How do I pronounce it? I need to try it. I need to get my brain into Japanese mode. Chikyu, I think it's pronounced. Which is just Japanese for Earth. But they write it, like, not in the right way. Which means it's Earth, but it's not Earth. It's not our Earth. It's not... So yeah, there's that weird thing. But it's... So we don't have any of the typical things, but it's also then... It gives it the opportunity to go full fantasy. Because there's 5 countries, and each of the Rangers are the 5 monarchs of these 5 countries. You have Shugorum, that's very, like, steampunky. Like, lots of gears and brass pipes and stuff. You've got Nukasoba, which is the very technological one. It's got computers and fancy stuff. Ishibana, a land that focuses on arts and medicine. It's the very beautiful country, the very aesthetic. You've got Tofu, which is just, as they refer, like, it is the kitchen of the planet. It's where, like, they do all the agriculture, and it's very Japanese inspired. Like, it's got all the rice fields, and you've got Gokan, which is the neutral country that kind of serves as, like, the arbiters of international law. And you've got... It is kind of otherwise, like, typical, like, bad guys are invading. The good guys, the leaders of these countries, have to fight back. But then they're the leaders of individual countries. They all have their own motivations, and they're not much of a team. Which, I mean, it sounds like it shouldn't make a good Sentai series when they're not good members of a team, but it just really works. And I feel that's where it comes down, like, when it comes to characters, that solidifies it being here in the S tier, is that the characters are good standalone characters. They're not the best characters Sentai has had. I think I can definitely say that. But they're definitely not like Q Ranger or Ninjas. Like, they haven't been caricatured. They haven't been made memes of. And they interact so well. At least I feel like, again, this is all opinion, but I am loving the characters in King Osier so far. Oh, and even the bad guys, because it's the first Sentai series in a while, I feel, where we've had a human be one of the big bads. Because there's the monsters, but there's also one of the kings of the country is, you know, a bit of a tyrant. And one of the Rangers isn't actually a king, he's just trying to overthrow this tyrant and, you know, claim his place as king. But when it comes to suits again the suits in King Osier are brilliant. They're using, I believe, latex rather than spandex, so the base suit's a bit shinier. But they're also, like, they actually have, like, a bit of armor plating on them on these ones, which makes them look so much cooler. And they all have shoulder capes. Shoulder capes. I love shoulder capes. Can I guess it? You know what? If I'm talking about King Osier, can I get King Osier up? Because they're people who deserve a bit of screen time here. That's Kamen Rider. Where's my Super Sentai pictures? Okay, it's a picture, but it is a little bit blurry. because again, I just screen capped this. There we go. That's the King Osier suits. I'm hiding Kaguragi again. There he is. Can I give him some screen time? There you go. No, but I love the suits in this series. The mech as well. King Osier itself as a mech looks so cool. Even the super clustered form we got recently is... Oh. King Osier is just great. At least I feel. I am very much enjoying it. And you know what? If I'm enjoying it this much, I don't really care what anyone else thinks about it, because, you know, why am I going to let their opinions about what makes good television affect how much I have fun? Oh. Music? The music as well. Okay, even if you don't like King Osier, you can't deny the music absolutely slams. Because the theme song is great already, but all the tracks, like, I remember, like, only in episode 2 getting Try and Fight, the theme of Nikosopa, because each country has, like, its own theme song. We got the mech theme song, Waking the King, is such a cool mech fight song. And like, Toei even went as far and got Nano to do the theme song for Shigodom, Inferno, and oh, Inferno. The music in King Osier so far has been brilliant. Which brings me on to, I suppose, overall fun of the series. I am loving King Osier. The only caveat I can put on King Osier is it hasn't finished yet. Episode 20 is only coming out on Saturday, well, on Sunday. And, like, Super Sentai normally does go on for about 50 episodes a year. So we're not even halfway through, so maybe it's a little early for me to be calling judgment, but 20 episodes in, and it is still... If it keeps up the way it has been, if it doesn't get worse, it might be a genuine contender for my favorite Sentai series of all time. One thing I suppose I should talk about, related to Suits and Tokusatsu thing, and that it does differently, that I know some people don't like, is that it uses very much, like those AR rooms. Or I don't know what they're called, but they're used recently. I know they're used in, like, The Mandalorian. The rooms where the floor is like a screen and the entire room, the room they're in, is surrounded by monitors. So it's kind of like green screening, but rather than it being a green screen that they then in post put images up onto, the actors are actually acting in front of live displays of their surroundings. Which means you get little things like the lighting's a bit better and such, because you have the light of the terrain of the screens around them rather than just this green lighting. And I know some people don't like it because a lot of the backgrounds and such are CGI, and normally that would bother me a bit, but it's still like a lot of the action is live action. I'm a bit annoyed that Tarantula Knight, the Sixth Ranger's mech, is CGI. But otherwise, like, most of the action's still been live. And, I don't know, it did take me a bit of getting used to, but I think it's kind of its charm. Because Tokusatsu is a genre that, for the most part, there is a lot of cheap effects. And I suppose, well, like, especially like, given it's a series that each episode of Sentai has to be made in about a week. Which is pretty impressive when you consider the time frame for it, because they have about 50 episodes each year to make. Plus a summer movie, plus a winter movie. Plus there's spin-offs. So, all in all, like, I kind of... it did take a while to get used to, like, the constant CGI backgrounds. But now it's just for me, it's just part of the charm of the show. And, yeah. It's one of those ones, I want to recommend it as, like, if someone is, like, looking for Super Sentai to watch. You can watch this year's King Osier, it is brilliant, but I might just hold my judgment on it and still recommend something like Shinkenger or Deca Ranger, purely because it hasn't finished yet and I don't know what they're going to do with it. But again, if they can just keep going the way they are, I'm going to be very, very happy with this year's Super Sentai. But with all that said, that's my tier list. You can tell from how top heavy it is that I am a fanboy. But you know what? This is. You know what? Yeah, I am biased. I'm not going to lie about it. I'm not going to pretend I'm not. I am very much biased towards Super Sentai. I feel it's great. So, again, if you are interested in watching Super Sentai at all and you haven't, my top recommendations are Deca Ranger and Shinkenger. And yeah, my recommendation to stay away from is probably Q Ranger. Even if you are a fan of Super Sentai, you can probably give this one a miss. But yeah, that is my rankings for Super Sentai series. I feel that's pretty accurate. As far as I'm not looking over here and looking at any and kind of going, nah, I feel that's maybe. Yeah. No, yeah, that all looks right to me. I might off screen, I might rearrange these and kind of like put it so that the highest S tiers are closer to the S. So you can kind of see like my absolute highest ranked, and then it kind of goes down the list. And then I might, you know, just make a post on you. I'll post it on YouTube, sure. Yeah, I think I will do that. I'll post it on YouTube. But that will be for later. But otherwise, I should say thank you so much for coming along. I apologize for all the scuff that there was at the beginning of this stream, and for being late in the first place. But I will be back tomorrow evening with some Persona 5 Royal at the usual time, and I'll be back with Dead Space on Saturday. But until then, once again, thank you so much for coming along and watching and chatting. I really hope you got some kind of enjoyment out of watching me faff about for a couple of hours. And, well, until next time, have a good day, have a good evening, and until next stream, goodbye.
Never too late to admit when you're on. Turn a new leaf, see a new dawn. The time to decide has come and gone. Just give me a chance, we can carry on. I've made my choice, these drums of your voice, they run through my head as I remember the day.